Hi, my name is Sherry. I'm a certified medical laboratory scientist. I have worked in the field for 10 years by now. So today's video, I don't really want to do too much of the editing. I just want to do a casual coffee talk, just like how you hang up with your friends in a coffee shop face to face. Why do I want to do this video? If you actually paid attention to the title of this video, I want you to watch this video before you actually step in the field and become a med tech. Well, a lot of times when you do the research online, things like follow me for a day as a med tech or some student program advertising videos, people tend to show you the brightest side of working as a med tech. It's not anything, there's nothing wrong with it. What I'm just saying is something you see charming on the internet, it could get you interested in the field or even get you into the field, start working. But to actually remain in the field and not quitting or having serious mental issues, you actually need to be able to accept or at least acknowledge what are the cons of working as a med tech. And it's not just about the technical stuff or the pay steps. Of course, that's very important as a job that an official adult job you do. But that's part of it. And the other part of it are more of how the feeling you get through every day's working and life, and stuff like the environment around you and day to day, how you do your work and how you interact with your coworkers or people who are not your coworkers, like patient. If you are an introvert, you're probably thinking picking up this job because you don't want to talk to people too much. But it's true, you have lesser interactions with other people in this job compared to nurse or doctors, but you're still gonna have to do some. So today we're gonna do paired pro and con, 5 pairs of them, and let's just get started so you don't just see me yapping at you through a camera. So first, pro and con pairs gonna be coming with the social recognition of your job versus your actual working reality. The social wise, a lot of people when they hear the word laboratory or scientist, the things that instantly coming up in their mind are gonna be you are well educated and your working environment is fancy, you are clean, or you even dress up to go to work. And that's not, I wouldn't say that's a complete false imagination, but in reality, what happens is it's much closer to a blue-collar job. If you thinking about the plumbers that you're gonna hire for your kitchen sink, we are a not as sweaty version of that. I know it's probably hard for you to imagine if you are still a student or the parents of a student. But what really happens in our job is our working environment is noisy, very noisy, because there are the instrument we running samples on, they generate a huge amount of noise, and you can literally walking into an environment and start to try to yelling to people just so they can hear you. It happens especially if you're working in chemistry department. Those analyzers are crazy. And the other thing is we're not just dealing with blood. The other sample you could receiving every day and deal with are things like urine, feces, and pus. If you're working in micro department, you will see a lot of interesting samples, and some of them maybe disgust you out. So that's like something a lot of times you wouldn't know, and nobody really gonna be telling you online when they trying to recruit you into the field. They've been like showing you the nice lunch break, they happy lab week, put on the white lab coat, but under that, this is the actual reality, and your lab coat can get messy and dirty. Just sometimes things getting splashed. It happens. So that's a little difference in between what you expect and what's actually happening in the lab. And the next pro and con I want to talk about is your schedule. So the bright side about this part is very likely you'll get a very stable schedule. You can predict what time you will be off. You can plan your vacation around it. And most of us don't have to take a on-call pager and completely ruin our personal life. You can actually have a life in this field, which is really good. But the downside of this is the reason that you can do this is because you are doing some repeated, boring daily task, day after day after day. Remember earlier I was saying you are like a cleaner version of plumber? This is what the major part of it. When you are in a clinical lab, you're not like the scientist or mad scientist you see on the drama show or anything. What happens is you will have SOP, the standard operating procedure, like in any factory. You are like a factory worker. You follow the procedure step by step, 100% every day until you retire. And that's the biggest reason why you can take time off, because every single other people who working at the same department with you, besides personality, skill-wise, everybody is identical. You are not special. So I don't know if that's gonna turn you down sometimes, because I know a lot of people trying to pick a lab-related job because they want to be creative, they want stimulation to their brain. But unfortunately, in our case, it could happen, but it's very rare. Most of the time, you just being very robotic. And so now we come to the next pair. Things I mentioned, like a lot of people are identical with you at the job place. But good part about the next pro and con is you still have a very high job security. Even nowadays, even if I'm trying to predict a future that you have to compete with AI, I don't believe that day coming very soon. I see people building those like AI robots doing housework, but it's gonna be very far away until they build a robot working in the lab. If I go to the really dark side, think about this. If they need to sue somebody or throw someone into the jail because they processed something wrong, they're gonna want a real person to take the consequences, not a robot. So if I put it that way, like our job is in a high secured status. Like you don't worry about losing it ever. And besides that, we also have like a huge wave of people need to getting retired from this field. So there's always gonna be an empty hole. You're gonna always, the second you graduate, somewhere you'll be accepted. And not just limited to hospital labs. If you're interested, you can go to the comment box. I have a personal website doing coaching services that will tell you what other options you have if you are buying a MLS degree and trying to working in a lab. It's not just limited inside the hospital lab. You can actually go to a lot of places with this degree. But the downside of this, because you are so stable, you are also limited the growth. It's the ceiling of your career. You can, it's not like your life is a dead end. You can, of course, go back to school and grab a degree to climbing up, like a medical degree as a pathologist. You will be still in the lab, but you will become a doctor or pathologist assistant. It's very similar with a physician assistant, besides it's for pathology. Or you could buy a research degree, become a PhD, and become a researcher. Your stable hand that you getting those skills you get from the clinical lab, knows how to pipette, how to track the quality assurance stuff, could become very useful if you're trying to go into research field. But just with a medtech degree, you don't really have like too much you can grow into. The immediate next step would be either a charge tech on the shift or become a department specialist. They are the same level as a supervisor of the department. They are just more leaning to the technical side instead of the paperwork side. They don't do as much of scheduling stuff. They are more focusing on keep tracking the performance and maybe become a middle person in between the department and the medical director. It's not like this field is kind of weird. We are not as matured structure as you would imagine, like the nurses. Up until 2009, the MLS was not even officially created. So you can imagine, like before that, if you go asking a older tech if they started working back in the 80s or 90s, a lot of them just went to school, grabbed a science degree, biology degree, and they just start work. And up until 2022, there are still people not certified, they just work. Okay, so if you're thinking about, oh, my upcoming career path will be very clear if I have the ambitions to become a higher ranking person in the hospital, I'm gonna have to turn you down right now. That's not what's happening. If you wanna climbing up the ladders inside the hospital with just a medtech degree, you either have connections through your family or you are extremely outgoing and knows how to network with other people in the hospital. And if you are an introvert, I want you really thinking about this, and before you get into the field, and be ready for what you're gonna be facing. Okay, so yeah, that's about that. And the next pro and con I want to talk about is your pay. Your paycheck is important, right? Everybody is like nowadays being like, oh, I'm not getting paid enough, blah blah blah. We are most likely, in most of the hospital, we are not paid as good as nurses. Several reasons of that. One of them is we are not as recognized as nurses. You're not like a patient-facing area. Other reason is no patients are gonna try to yelling at us. Right? A lot of nurses, their paycheck are coming from being abused by the patient, not by their skills. That's not a joke. That's for real. A lot of nurses are getting paid because they are abused. And also, vast majority of those clinical labs are not unionized. You might think if you are super confident about yourself, you might have the thought of, oh, that means I can just be so good, so I can negotiate and get an even higher pay. Those kind of situation, I call it as an outlier. Okay, it exists. If you get somebody really like you, like personality-wise, technical-wise, they are very get along with you. Yeah, it can happen, but the chance is low. A lot of times you are not your yearly pay growths are not as good as the nurses, since they have a union to do the bargaining, do the talk, and you are just as an individual. So, but even with that, now we can get through the burnout part. Unfortunately, oh right, that was the down part. Let's talk about some bright side about this. I don't know why did I start to talk about the downside first. So the bright side about this part is you'll be having a lower burnout rate than the nurses. As one of the biggest reason we are not getting abused by the patient. You just at most gonna get some doctors or nurses melting down on the phone because they trying to get their result faster. But you will get used to it. A lot of us getting used to it and just being like, yeah, okay, I try my best. You have stable schedule and you have relatively okay pay. You'll be able to support your life. I'm not saying you'll be rich. You wouldn't. Even you are very careful with your financial planning, you are not going to be a rich person. If you save it up, trying to buy a Hermes bag, that's never going to happen in your life. But what you can get from this is you can rent a decent place, you can pay off your car and student loans somewhere in your mid-30s to 40s if you planned it well. And you could have some money maybe budgeting for getting luxurious brands, lipsticks. Or if you're a boy, you will be having the money to buy video games if you're into it. So your life won't be too bad with the pay. So, and that's one of the other reasons why you're not going to burn out as easy as the nurses. You'll be stable, having an okay payment. Why don't talk about buying a property and living like a true adult? Because in today's market, I don't expect that too much. If you want to be a house owner long down the road and retire at 65 as scheduled, at least most of people schedule their retirement at 65 plus minus a couple years of that, around that. It's hard. I say if you want to do that, you have to consider about doing traveling jobs or find a unionized lab to work. It still can happen. And the last pair of pro and cons I want to go through gonna be your daily work stress level. It's just described that way. One of the biggest stress you'll be having if you do care about your identity, if you taking MLS as part of your identity after working so long, is a lot of people wouldn't be recognizing you. You are pretty much invisible, not just to the general society. It's even within the health system. We have a lab week going on every April, but you will see hospital-wise, the celebration will be very contained inside the lab. And nobody else be knowing what's going on. Maybe one or two posters at the employee entrance, those kind of area. But it's not gonna be as a huge celebration as how nurses and doctors are taking their weeks for celebration. I mean, if you are a very extreme introvert, maybe that's a good news for you. I don't know. But for a lot of people, they feel like they are undervalued. So that's we can both see why. So I don't know. I feel like one of the things has been making me feel undervalued is back in the days of COVID. That time I already started working as a med tech, and when people getting locked at home, there was a huge online collaboration of artists performing and they trying to be like having a big old long notes of thank you the essential workers to push through the hard time. I watched that entire online show because that day I was not scheduled to work. I was very happy. I was being like, why are they gonna mention us? And for the entire show, they mentioned everybody: doctors, nurses, drivers, cashiers, delivery people, taxi driver, but nobody ever mentioned a word about the laboratory, regardless of research or clinical. Nobody. So that was like that was the time I haven't been working for too long in the field. I would just be like, oh, why you do this? I have to be honest with you, I was a little upset when that happened. But now if I have to go back to the days, I probably don't care as much as before. I just, when you're freshly into the field and you feel like, oh my God, I achieved something in my life, I wish to be recognized in some way, but no, that's not happening. And so with the invisible, the bright side about this invisible part is you will be the only person in the hospital never getting a patient lawsuit. Nobody gonna file a claim on a person they didn't know exist. I take that as a huge plus, because if you ever see any of those back and forth patient lawsuit with doctors and nurses, you will be feel like, thank goodness I did not become one of those people. Standing in the court is not fun at all, and it's usually not just one visit. It will be multiple talks, opening privately, a lot of them, and you don't want to deal with that. Nobody gonna be want to deal with that. So, but working as a lab tech, you will never have to do that. So yay, if you want to get into the field. So that's like the stuff, non-technical stuff I want to talk you through before you get into the field. And why I think this is important to you is, I said you have to like having a expectations of what's the worst scenario can happen during the work, not just the technical things. And that's what makes you last in the field and make you work in the field long term and still keep your sanity and mental health. That's very important. And also, I found out like a lot of younger generations, it's not like I'm super old or like a grandpa talking to you like that. It's just like after working for 10 years, I realized a lot of people get into the field and totally surprised by how the feeling about the work they get. Because in the school, you'll be taught all the technical stuff you need to know. Maybe not 100%. I'll make a different video about this part. Our school actually sometimes missing a lot in education. But a lot of them getting a huge surprise on how this field actually feel like to them. It's like in the school, you being like, I'll teach you how to read the blood smears, I'll teach you how to recognize each blood cells, I'll teach you how to figure out if this potassium level is dangerous. That's what you do at work, that's important. But people are not going to tell you like, if you're gonna burn out, how you should predict your future. What if like you can't retire? Like how to talk to your coworkers, how other people are going to be treating you. And you don't want to get those as a surprise after you already graduate and get the certification. Because our field, getting into school, you have to basically be a good student since you are in high school. Get a good grade, get into school, and study really hard to get a certification. And then if you are regretting because how your working environment, the non-technical working environment is, and then decide to quit, that's a lot of loss. for everybody, for both you and the place that you work at. So that's the reason I want to make today's video and address a lot of things that is not technical and show you what can be the downside of it. And if you're still interested in getting into work as a medtech, I have a personal website that offering coaching services, personalized ones, so you can know what are your options. Maybe after we talk, you would be not trying to get into the medtech. You want to trying to explore other options. We can do that too. So that way you can get something really suit you, suit your ambitions, suit your long-term plan, not just being temporarily getting a so-called socialized, glorified job. So if you're interested, I'll put the link in the description box. Yeah, that's all we're gonna be talking today. It's a very casual coffee talk. Maybe you just open this video as a background noise while you're doing your housework. That's totally fine with me. But if you're a future student or a student parent, I hope this actually give you some new information that you normally wouldn't be finding online or through a program officials. All right, see you next week. Oh, and don't forget, this Friday I'll be still doing the reaction to the pitch show. I won't be as serious as today. All right, see you. Bye.